Hello, colorist. I got some requests to do a more basic video. Most of my videos are really more intermediate, I would say, as far as skill level. Wanted to see something a little bit more for beginners, so that's what we're going to try to do today. So if you get lost in any of these comments or any of these terms I'm using, just let me know in the comments, or we'll try to get you straightened up there. So this is just a sketch by Humberto Ramos, picked up off the internet. It's pretty low res, but it'll work. So the Lineart here that I've opened in Photoshop, I've put on a layer called Lineart, and I've set the layer type to multiply, and that's going to let us see through these lines. Is I guess the best way to put it. Below that, I've got the flats layer, and it's sort of, think of how you would color, a kid would color a comic. Everything's going to be one color each for each section in the flats layer. We'll use that to make our selections later. So I'm going to use the lasso tool in freehand mode like this. You can also use it in polygonal, which will let you create, especially if you're doing hard lines or something. But there's a lot of organic shapes here, so I'm going to use the freehand. And I'm just going to trace first all the way around with the lasso tool, getting as close as I can. And every now and then you'll see me sort of loop off a section like that, and I'm just a little bit easier on your hand sometimes. It doesn't cramp up when you get down low. I'm going to hold shift, and it's going to add to the selection here whenever I keep on moving. So I'm going to press shift and then continue down this side. See a little plus sign next to the lasso. It means we're adding it. You don't have to keep holding shift. You can just hold shift when you get started. And I'm going to keep doing that until I've got the entire outline here. My tablet is not working the way that it should right now. I don't know what's going on with that. So sorry if I lost you for a second. I'm just holding down shift to add to these parts, and alt to remove parts from the selection here. So now we zoom out and go ahead and fill this with just a generic blue here. And you can see some places here where I didn't get it exactly right. Can go back and fix those. Okay, I'll just use the bucket tool to fill this in. I want to go ahead and make a new layer below this for the background, just to give us something else other than that white there. And I don't know why I chose blue, but figured it was good to start. So now we've got the whole shape done. We're going to continue with the lasso tool here. I'll switch to polygonal mode now just so you can see the difference. So in this mode, I'm just going to select the outline of his hat here. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, well, why did you do all this at one time like that? Why wouldn't you do each section individually? I'll explain. First, I'm going to grab this brownish color here. Now I've got the bucket tool, anti-aliases on, contiguous is unchecked, all layers is unchecked at the top. opacity is 100, normal mode, tolerance of 0. So it's only going to fill this section of the blue here if I'm on the right layer. There we go. So the reason that I usually just make all my selections at once like this is because and for some reason my tablet keeps turning off. I don't know what's going on. One second, sorry. Okay, sorry if this seems herky-jerky. My tablet keeps flickering off and on. I may have to send this in. It's been doing this intermittently for a while. Anyway, so the reason I select everything is because you'll notice that, like, for example, if I want to do his shirt here, I wouldn't want to go around all of this and fill it, and then go around this section and fill it for his name, because if I did, I'm selecting this part here really twice. So what I usually do is do it all one color first. You can always go back and so let's say, like, you know, I know for a fact that I'm going to be doing his skin here, and I'm also going to then be doing his shirt. So I'm just going to grab this whole section here around his face and just make sure that I catch all of it all the way around. And you can see I'm over the line here. No, it doesn't matter because I'm going to have to go back over those sections anyway. So got my skin color here, fill it in. And that is a little too bright for me. I'm going to Control U and take some saturation out of that, darken it a little bit. Okay. Actually, that didn't work because we'll leave it like that for now. So now you're wondering, well, why did you go outside the lines here? Well, the reason is now I'm going to go back, if my tablet would cooperate. So now I'm going to go grab his shirt here. And I'm not worried about his undershirt because I've got to go back and fix that later anyway. And we'll choose a color there. And I'm just going to fill in those sections. See, it didn't matter that I went outside the lines because now I'm going to go back and do the rest of them. Do his undershirt here. Because if you trace over every single section separately, you're going to be selecting things more than once. We'll go ahead and do this whole section that color too. Okay. And the last thing is the smoke here. And I'm going to use the Alt to erase that little section. And now we got our smoke color. Okay, sorry if this seems a little herky-jerky in the audio. I've actually completely removed my Intuos 5 and I'm going back to my Intuos 2, which is 11 years old and will not die. So until I get the other one fixed, here we go. Again, sorry. So we've got the Lasso Tool here. And I'm just going to keep on selecting all the areas separately here. And again, this is not perfect, but it's close enough for our purposes. Okay, and so this is what we've got. Now you can see what this looks like without the line art. Here's with the line art. So this is what's called flats. What I usually do, I actually hire someone to do this part because and there is a skill to it, there is an art to it, but it doesn't require really an artistic eye, but it's very time consuming for me anyway. So this is the part you hear someone, they say they're a flatter, then this is what they do. This is basically where their job is over. So usually when I get a piece of art, the flats are already done. The colors may not be correct, but I can easily go back if I want to change a color of something. I can just highlight it with the magic wand, change the color, bam, there we go. Wolverine is fabulous. You get the idea. So the next thing I'm going to do as a colorist is I want to decide where the light source is coming from. Sometimes the colorist has some leeway there about where the light's coming from. A lot of times the line art will actually indicate where it's coming from. So you can see in this case, we've got the light from the shadow there under his eyes and under his nose. So you've got a light that's coming in something from this direction, from up here, and sort of in the front of him. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to see, you'd see more shadow under him. And just a bit to the right, you see the shadow here. You follow this line, it's actually going off to the right some, and also under his nose more on the right and the left, so that's telling us the light source is coming from here. So again, he's an excellent artist, so you can see that. Not all artists render things like this. You have to make that decision for yourself. So, but let's say for the sake of this piece, we're just going to stick with what it looks like he wants the colors to be here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my magic wand. Actually, before I do anything, I'm going to duplicate this layer, the flats layer. I'm going to call it colors. So now if I screw up my colors in some way and I want to go back and make edits, I can always go back to my flats and pick up the colors again. So save us a lot of time. Don't want to forget that step. And I'm going to change that color because it's bugging me. There we go. So we've got a line source coming from here. I'm going to get my lasso tool. Well, actually, sorry, magic wand. I'm going to select it. Now, I've got an action set up to run. It's set to F4. What it does a couple of things. I'm going to press it. You can set it to whatever button you like once you make it. But once you press it, you'll notice now we've got a new layer, and the only thing on it is the hat, the color of the hat. Okay? But it did a couple of things there. I'm going to back this up. Under my actions, I know you guys probably can't read this, but it's called a layer via copy. Is what the name of the action is. So if I wanted to make the action, what I would do is I would go to actions, hit record, and then whatever I do, the action can be duplicated. So the first thing, I've got to make sure that I've got my selection. When I run my action, all at one time, it copies that part of the picture, pastes it into a new layer. It then locks the transparent pixels on that layer so that I can't color outside of it, no matter how hard I try, which is a huge time saver. So it's really easy to do that, to make an action. You really just go through those steps manually. You would hit record the steps of copy, paste on a new layer, lock the transparency, and then stop the action, call it whatever you like. There you go. So I'm going to grab my lasso tool here. This is called a cut and grad method, a cut and gradient method. The cuts is what they call what you're making with the lasso tool is called cuts. So we've got a light again coming from the top right here. So I'm just going to select the area of the hat where I know the light's going to hit. Now it's not going to hit the undersides, and it's not going to hit this side very much. And if this isn't exactly what I want, I can always hold down Shift and add little sections here. Okay, and there's a couple of things you can do now. So let's say I'm going to grab my brush. The brush I'm using, I'm going to have set to screen mode. The opacity is about 40%. The flow is about 50, and I've made sure that I've got the pressure sensitivity turned on. So now I'm going to grab sort of a lightish yellow here. Choose my brush. Now you can hold down Alt and the right click button on the side of the pen. You can drag this to increase the diameter, or that's left and right, or you can drag it up and down to increase the hardness. So I want to keep this real soft and kind of pretty big. And now when I make this pass from left, whoops, sorry. So when I make this pass here now, got a nice little fade here. I don't want to overlap it too much, because then it just looks like it's all just one color there. So I want to make sure I get that fade in. So I'm going to shrink this down, and I'm going to pass it just along the edge here. And I don't really like the little highlight I did there, so I'm going to remove that and try this again. And I still don't want to be able to see this at all, I don't think. That's better. So that was just one pass of the brush. So if I wanted to go in and create even more cuts to make it brighter, I can go back in and highlight the parts that I want to hit again. Again, big brush, one pass, there you go. And this is not a particularly shiny item. If it was, then you could go in and create even more cuts and more bright sections of it, but it really doesn't fit what we're trying to do here. So that looks pretty good. One thing I like to do a lot of times is I want to change this base color just a bit. A lot in reality, usually they shift toward the blue or purplish whenever they're getting hit by a bright, in this case, kind of a white yellowish light here. So I'm just going to highlight just those parts, that part that I haven't colored yet. I'm going to grab a blue, and I'm going to change my. If I was to keep this in screen mode with this blue, you'll see it actually lightens it, which is not really what we want. In screen mode, it lightens everything. So I'm going to change this to normal. I'm going to lower the opacity to about 20 or so. And I'm going to make another pass at it. And it was very subtle. It didn't change it a lot, but you can see that it did change the color a bit. And you can play with that opacity. Actually, I do like it a little bit higher, so I'll set it to about 30%. And pass over there, and there you go. And you can play with this to different effects. You know, that's one way of doing it. You can also just select the areas that you want to be in shadow. And pass over that with the blue. And maybe it may take a few times to get it right, but it's pretty close. So there you go. And now, so I've got this layer, and some people like to keep all these layers separate. I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm going to merge this back down to the colors layer. And now I'm going to have my magic wand again. And let's do a skin. So I've highlighted that. I've ran my action. Puts it on a new layer. And this time I'm just going to grab the areas that are going to be in the light. And they've actually gave us a nice little cheat here, because he's already given us that part. I'm going to remove this section here under his nose. Got a nice little shadow there. And maybe under his lip there. So I'm going to grab, it's kind of an orangish, light orange color. Make sure I'm back in screen mode. And you'll know when you're in the wrong mode, because normal, it really doesn't look, it looks orange. It doesn't look right in normal mode. So I'm going to go back to screen mode. And again, big brush. I'm just going to pass a few times over this. And that looks pretty good. Can do the same thing on his neck here. I'm just removing these sections that are not going to be hit by bright light. That's just a pass or two. It looks pretty good. If I wanted to go even further, let's say I wanted to add a few more highlights, maybe to his nose, to his lip here. And this all just comes with practice. It's tough to judge. I don't really care for that very much. I really like the way his lip looks. And sometimes it's just trial and error. And again, if I want to go back and darken up that shadow part that's in the shadow, I'll just grab that same blue. Make sure I'm in normal mode again. There you go. And you can always go back, grab that orange again. I think it was that one. And if you want to lighten anything up, you can always go back to that layer. Let's say I want to brighten up his chin a little bit. A little too orange. I'm going to take some of that orange out. So soften it up just a little bit with the brush. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of this done. Again, when the light's coming from this side, up above, so grab that same screen color. I'm actually going to darken that a bit. And just go over this a few times. And it's good to mix up the soft and the hard. So like, went over this with a couple of passes on the soft side. If I wanted to go back and add in some highlights, some cuts, you know, you can do that. And actually, you can see I forgot to put that on a separate layer, but luckily I still have my flat. So I'll go back to the flat layer, select it, go back to my colors layer, run the action, and this time I'm going to make a few cuts in here. And merge that back down. Now I'm going to get a shirt. You can see I accidentally colored over that while ago by accident. So I'm going to go back to my flats layer, select his shirt, run the action, put it on a new layer. And I'm going to just grab a light blue. I'm thinking about where the light's going to hit, so it's not really going to hit under this lip here. Under his coat, so I can take those sections out. Then switch to my brush, and there we go. And if I wanted to embellish this a bit, maybe along the edge of the shirt here, where these wrinkles are, I could. And I mean, that's looking pretty good for a quick sketch. If I want to do the smoke, merge this one back down. And again, I'm just going to grab a light, maybe that light orangish color. And picking colors, really is going to take some practice. You're going to pick the wrong color sometimes, that's fine. You can always undo it and start over. So run the action, new layer. Switch back to my brush. Again, it's pretty soft, and I want to lower this opacity down some. I don't want this to be too overpowering. And so we've got this cigar, I guess, in his mouth, and we want to color that. So I'm going to merge that back down. And I'm going to select that little part. And let's just make that an orange and see how it looks. I'll put this in normal mode. That's 100% opacity, just made the orange. It doesn't really look like it's glowing though, so I want to make a new layer on top of the line art layer, and I'm going to call it SFX for special effects. We'll keep a really saturated orange color here. And again, I'm going to lower the opacity of the brush down about 40. I'm going to put this in color dodge mode this time. It's really good for getting bright special effects. Again, get this bright orange, and I'm on top of the lines again. And you see it's already starting to look like it's glowing, and as I go over it, I'm shrinking the brush down every time. It's really starting to look like it's on fire. Yeah, look at that. So we got a nice little glowing cigar there. So now let's think about something else. Again, you've always got to think about light when you're coloring. So we've got the light, the sunshine maybe coming in from the top right, like we talked about, coming from here. But now we've got this orange that's coming from here in this area. So what would that do? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to go back and grab my flats again, and grab all of his skin. That's what we'll do that first since it's closest. And you may want to make, some people like to do these on separate layers. We'll do that this time. Instead of running the action, I'm just going to make a new layer and call it Firelight. And so everywhere that this light's going to show up, where the light's going to hit, I'm going to make a selection. And really it would get the side of his nose. It would even get under his hat here. And let's see, I'm just going to grab this orange here. And I want to try this in color dodge and just see what it looks like. Let's see. I want to get rid of the flats here around the smoke. I'll try that again, and this time I actually didn't get under his hat like I wanted. And you'll see the brush is pretty big, so I just got it way out on the edge here. One little quick pass or two. Got a little bit of orange in there. It's not a lot because the sun's still pretty bright. And even under the lip of his hat here, you would have something hitting here. So we'll hit that a little bit under there. And you would see it over here as well. So it's subtle, but there you go. I think that looks pretty good. You would also probably see it in his eyes now that I'm looking at it, so I'm going to make some selections here. Just a couple of highlights there. I think that looks pretty good. So, and you could always go into the background here, and let's say you wanted to, we'll do just a simple gradient back here. Whoops, so I'm just going to grab the gradient tool. Actually, that was not on the background there. Let's try that again. And you can't put this on top of the line. Sometimes it can be overpowering. When I set the gradient in screen mode and go on top of my line art, I don't really like the way it looks though. So I guess that's about it. Got a nice little range of things. We've got, like we talked about, light sources. We talked about special effects. And in this case, we were using local color. It's what they call what color things actually are. If you ever want to sort of play around with the mood of the color, let's say that maybe this was at I don't know if we could switch this to nighttime, but I'm going to make a new layer on top of all this and set it to color mode. And I'm going to grab a blue, and I'm going to fill that layer with the blue. That's a pretty strong blue, but you can lower the opacity of the layer here, and you can see it really changes the mood. So this would be maybe he's under a street light at night, or and you can play around with these. I've got the opacity about 30% on that layer, and you can change the color of the of that layer and sort of get different effects. So, you know, maybe this is, you know, in a desert or something, you know, and everything's sort of reddish, or, you know, he's in the woods at night, and you can really you can play with all these different colors here on that color layer. You can see the huge range of changes here. And also you can see it even shifted the color of the light there. Let's say I didn't want to do that. I can just put the special effects on top of it. So, if you guys don't have any other questions, I think we'll call this one. Again, this was kind of an experiment. It's the first one of these that I've done like this. If there were parts you didn't understand, just let me know. And again, this was very rough, so you know, obviously, if this was a finished product, we would really want to follow, you know, the lines better and make sure that we did our best. But since this was a sketch to begin with, and just for the sake of the video, we'll leave it like this. So until next time, you guys have a good one.